Hey, fifth graders, it's Mrs. Trombley. It's time for Unit 4, Lesson 13 notes, dividing by multiples of tens, hundreds, thousands, etc. So we have looked at multiplying by tens, hundreds, and thousands, 10,000s, and beyond, like this entire school year. It's now time to apply it with division. So I have here just some sample problems where we can look for patterns, and usually when we can identify what the pattern is, then we're able to apply that pattern instead of just memorizing something. We have a good understanding of it. So that's the purpose. All right, so first things first, I have 240 divided by 60. Right, so we want to know how many groups of 60 there are in 240. So we could ask ourselves, 60 times what is 240? Like how many 60s would it take, right? If you counted by 60, it would be 60, 120, 180, 240. It would take 4 60s to get to 240, right? And 6 times 4 is 24 with our extra 0. So if 60 times 4 is 240, that means 240 divided by 60 is 4. This next one is 2,400 divided by 60. So 2,400. So now we have to ask ourselves how many 60s there are in 240. So the first one, I just counted up by 60, and I like math and I like counting, but I don't really want to count by 60 up to 2,400, okay? So I'm going to use my multiplication to help. I know that 6 times 4 is 24, right? Now, in my answer, there are 2 zeros here, right? In my problem right now, there's only 1 0. That means I'd need another one in order to get 2,400, right? And you'll remember those patterns. We just multiply our non-zero digits and count the number of zeros in the problem. We saw that's what happens when you multiply by 10. So that means that if 60 times 40 is 2,400, then 2,400 divided by 60 is 40. Now we have 24,000 divided by 60. Definitely don't want to count up by 60s, right? So I'm going to use my multiplication to help because I know whatever this is times 60 will give me that. So I know that 6 times 4 is 24. And in my answer, I see 3 zeros. In my problem right now, I only see 1. So that means I need 2 more. So here we would have 400. Because if 60 times 400 is 24,000, then 24,000 divided by 60 is 400. All right, one more little set here, and then we'll look for our patterns. This first one, I have 32,000 divided by 8. Again, not counting by 8s up to 32,000. That would be horrible. It would take forever. So I want to know 8 times what would be 32,000, because this times 8 will give me 32,000, right? That's how multiplication and division work. So using our multiplying by multiples of 10, I know that 8 times 4 is 32. My answer has 3 zeros. That means I need 3 zeros in my problem. So 8 times 4,000. And does that work? Well, 8 times 4 is 32. 3 zeros, 3 zeros. So if 8 times 4,000 is 32,000, then 32,000 divided by 8 is 4,000. All right, now I have 32,000 divided by 80. Notice in this one, the digit we were dividing by stayed the same, and we were adding zeros to that first digit. And now the first digit staying the same, we're adding zeros to the second digit. Just thought I'd get you to hone in on that. Now I want to know what 32,000 divided by 80 is. So I want to know 80 times what? 32,000. Well, again, I know that 8 times 4 is 32. There's 3 zeros in my answer. There's only 1 in the problem. That means I would need 2 here. And if we double check, 8 times 4 is 32 and 1, 2, 3 zeros. Yeah. So if 80 times 400 is 32,000, then 32,000 divided by 80 is 400. Right now, 32,000 divided by 800. Again, 8 times 4 is 32. There's 3 zeros here and only 2 in the problem. That means I need 1 more here. So I have 1, 2, 3 zeros after that 32. So that means that this would be 40. And 8,000 times what is 32,000? Well, I know 8 times 4 is 32, and 3 zeros, no zeros necessary. That means that 32,000 divided by 8,000 is 4. Okay, and now is where we look for patterns. We already know the patterns with multiplication, though. We just used multiplication to help us solve this division instead of setting it up like long division, because we could have done that. But you're going to learn that when you see all these zeros, it's so much easier just to do it right in your head. Okay, so if we are looking for some patterns here, first off, I noticed that with 24 and 6, the non-zero digits, That's the number I lead with here, right? So I'm just doing 24 divided by 6. And I notice that there's 1 0 here, 1 0 here, and none here. And here I see 2 and 1, and there's only 1. And 3 and 1, and there's 2. Okay, so I don't know. What do you see? Well, keep looking. Let's look at our next set. I know that 32 divided by 8 is 4, and every single one of these, we just kind of divided our starting number, right? So we just divided like those beginning digits that we already knew. And how do we figure out the number of zeros here? Here I started out with 3, and when I divide by 8, I still have 3. Here I started out with 3, and when I divided by 1 0, I have 2 left. And here I have 3 and 2, and then there's 1 left. And here 3 and 3, and there's nothing. It looks to me like these zeros are kind of canceling each other out, if that makes sense. Like, see how there's 1 0 here and 1 0 here, and then I just end up having 24 divided by 6. And here, there's 1 0 here, and I get rid of one of these, and now there's 1 left in my answer. And here there's 1 and 1, and now there's 2 left. And here there weren't any dividing that I was dividing by, so all of them stayed. But in this one, I was taking 32,000 divided by 80. This 0, there's 2 left. Here I have 2 zeros and 2 zeros, and there's 1 left. And here, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. All right, so I'm hoping that you're noticing that you are kind of canceling out these zeros here. And I don't know if this is making enough sense for us to write this out just yet. So I want to show you what's happening here. When you have 240 divided by 60, 240, and I'm just going to write it like this because we can write division like that, right? That's another way to express division. I could look at this and just bear with me. And yes, I want you to write this because then you'll have the proof, okay? When you have 240, isn't that the same as 24 times 10? Yes, it is, because 24 times 10 is 240. And 60, I could write that as 6 times 10, couldn't I? Now let me ask you this. What happens when you divide a number by itself? It doesn't equal 0. What's 10 divided by 10? How many groups of 10 go into 10? The answer is 1. And when you only have 1 left, and 24 times 1 is 24, and 6 times 1 is 6. It's kind of like it cancels out, but it becomes 1. And the reason it goes away is because when you divide 1 by itself, it's 1. And then when you're left to multiply, anything times 1 is itself. So when you have these zeros, you can actually just cross them off when they match up, because that's like taking 10 divided by 10. We're only left with 24 divided by 6. That's 4. Now, when we had 2,400 divided by 60, this would be like taking 24 times 10 times 10, and this is like 6 times 10, right? So in this one, if I had 24 times 10 times 10 over 6 times 10, only one of those would go away, right? Only one of them. 10 divided by 10 is 1. So I'd be left with 240 divided by 6. And we know that 6 times 4 is 24. And if I wanted to get 6 times 4 is 24, that would be fine, but I want to get 240, so I need a 0 there. So these zeros are canceling each other out. Instead of writing out a pattern, I've kind of changed my mind, I want to write another little problem here. And I think writing them as fractions, like fractional division, will make it a little bit easier to see here. Okay, so let's say that I have 250 divided by 50. If I have 250 divided by 50, remember that when you see these zeros here, this is like saying 25 times 10, 5 times 10. If you see those zeros, you can actually cross them out. If there's one in the top and one in the bottom, because that's like saying 10 divided by 10. And we can solve what's left. 25 divided by 5 would be 5. If I had 2,500 divided by 50, then I can cancel out one of the 10s. 10 divided by this 10, that equals 1, right? But now I'm left with 250 divided by 5. Well, I know that 5 times 5 is 25, and then there's that 0. If I had 25,000 divided by 50, then this 10 divided by this 10 would equal 1, and I'd be left with 2,500 divided by 5. Well, I know that 5 goes into 25 5 times, and then there's still those 2 zeros that didn't cancel out. All right, so let's try a couple down here. I have 14,000 divided by 700. So I want you to picture this like this. When you see it like that, picture it like this, okay? So we can cancel out that and that. Now I can't get rid of this 0 because there's not another one down here. And again, this is because 10 divided by 10 is 1. 10 divided by 10 is 1. So we're left with 140 divided by 7. Well, I know that 7 goes into the 14 twice, and then we still have our 0. So 20 would be our answer. The next one, I have 4,000 divided by 20. And again, I want you to picture it like this. 10 divided by 10, that's 1. So look at what's left. 4 divided by 2 is 2, and then there are 2 zeros, so 200. Next, all right, now I'm not going to rewrite this time, but remember I'm dividing by 8,000, right? So this 10 would cancel out this 10, or sorry, they're not really canceling out, they're equaling 1. So 10 divided by 10 is 1, 10 divided by 10 is 1. Those are all gone, right? Because 56 times 1 times 1 times 1 is 56, and 8 times 1 times 1 times 1 is 8. And 56 divided by 8 is 7. This is just plain old 7. And isn't 7 times 8,000 56,000? Yeah, because 7 times 8 is 56, and then 3 zeros. So you can use multiplication. Use that inverse to double check your work. All right, 360 divided by 90. 10 divided by 10 is 1. 36 divided by 9, that's 4. All right, 480,000 divided by 800. 10 divided by 10 is 1. 10 divided by 10 is 1. I can't get rid of any more zeros because there aren't any left here to divide into that, right? Or any here to divide into that. So I know that 48 divided by 8 is 6, and then I see there are 2 zeros left. So it will be 600. Okay, we're going to try something a little bit different. I want to know 3,500 divided by what is 70. And remember how I said, well, you can just do 7 times 8,000 to get 56,000. We can use multiplication to help us figure out these, right? 70 times this will give you 3,500, right? So ask yourself, 70 times what will give you 3,500? When I look at the 7 and the 35, I know that 7 times 5 is 35. So that's going to be my number, right? Now I have to figure out how many zeros I need. Well, if I have 1 0 here and 2 here, that means I'd have to have 1 more here. 70 times 50 would be 3,500. And if you don't believe me, check it. 7 times 5 is 35, 2 zeros, 2 zeros. And if we did work backwards, wouldn't this divided by this divided by this would give me that 1, and I'd have 350 divided by 5. 35 divided by 5 is 7. There's 1 0 left. So I feel like using multiplication is the easiest way to go for that one. If it makes more sense for you just to divide, then you can go for it. All right, I'm just sharing strategies here. All right, I want to know 30 times what is 3,000, because that's a strategy we can use. We can use the inverse. Multiplication is the inverse of division. Well, I know that 3 times 1 is 3, and there's 1 0 here, and there's 3 in my answer. So that means I need to have 2 more here, so that when I take 30 times 100, I get 3,000. And let's make sure 3 times 1 is 3, and then 1, 2, 3 zeros, 1, 2, 3 zeros. And you can double check it right back. These 2 would be gone, and so would those, and I'd end up with 30 divided by 1, which is 30. Okay, 6,400 divided by 80. I know that 8 times 8 is 64. And there's 1 0 here and 2 here, so I need to have a 1 here to get a total of 2 when I work backwards multiplying. 8 times 8 is 64. 1, 2, 1, 2. All right, now do you see how the 80's on this side instead of that side? I did that because sometimes you'll see them like that, and I don't want it to confuse you. This means the same exact thing. I can ask myself, 80 times what is 720? Okay, if it really messes you up when you see this, then just do that. It's not different. Okay, we can still use the same exact strategy, but one of your strategies could be just cross it off and put it on the other side. It's okay. So I want to use multiplication to see 720 divided by what is 80? Well, I know 80 times this blank will give me 720. Well, when I look at 8 and 72, I know that 8 times 9 is 72, right? And there's 1 0 here and 1 0 here. That means I don't need any more. The answer here is just plain old 9. And if you tested it with division, 72 divided by 9 is 8, and there's my 0. All right, last one. 4,500 divided by what is 90? And again, if you want to cross it off and write the 90 on the other side, you can. But I know that 9 times 5 is 45. There's 1 0 here and 2 here. That means I'll need another 0 in order to make this happen. And to double check it, let's do the division. 45 divided by the 5 is 9. And one of those zeros would be a 10 divided by 10. And there'd be 1 left. And there's 1 left in our answer. All right, I'm hoping this makes sense. I wish you were in your class. I miss you. We'll see you soon.